7:05 call to order for the Planning Commission meeting for Monday, June 10th, 2024. Get a quick roll call. Commissioner Nias? Commissioner Beisel?
Present.
Commissioner Borka?
Present.
Commissioner Young?
Present.
Commissioner Russell?
Present.
All right, I'm here. We have one noted absence, Vice Chair. So we have six present, one absent. So according to the bylaws, we do have quorum. We can enact business for the town. Want to do a quick vote for the adoption of the agenda. Excuse me. Commissioner Nias?
Approve.
Commissioner Beisel?
Approve.
Commissioner Borka?
Approve.
Commissioner Young?
Approve.
Commissioner Russell?
Approve.
I approved 6-0. The agenda has been adopted. Want to do the quick vote for the approval of the minutes for the previous month meeting. It will be April 8th, 2024. As a note of reference, we did not have a meeting for May. So quick vote on the adoption for the approval of the minutes for the previous month. Commissioner Nias?
Approve.
Commissioner Beisel?
Approve.
Commissioner Borka?
Approve.
Commissioner Young? Commissioner Russell?
Abstain.
And I approve 5-0. The approval of the meeting, approval of the previous month's meeting for April 8th, 2024 has been approved. Only thing we have on the agenda is a presentation for the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. Want to do that? Before I do that, I want to open it up for public hearing, since we are going to have, my understanding is we're going to have that meeting remotely. The presenters are going to be remote.
Yes.
So I'm going to open it up for a public hearing at 7:07. And I will turn it over to town staff for that meeting.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, RHI, the consultants with the town of Dumfries, helping us with the comprehensive plan update, are scheduled to provide a presentation remotely, and I see that they are now on and ready to begin, so I'll turn it over to RHI.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good evening. My name is Eric Feldman, and I'm an associate principal and planner at RHI. You've all met Ron Sessoms, who has been the RHI project manager up to now. And the reason I am here today is that Ron, unfortunately for us, has moved on to a new opportunity and is no longer with RHI. So I'll be stepping in as the project manager for the remainder of our work. I've worked on a number of other comprehensive plans in other jurisdictions, including assisting Prince William County with the update to their land use chapter of the comprehensive plan. And so hopefully I can bring some of this experience to bear for this project. I've been busy getting up to speed on Dumfries and the work we've completed to date, and was able to do a site visit to the town with Ron before he left to learn his current thinking. And fortunately, the rest of our team, who I'll introduce in a moment, remains intact and have been sharing their institutional knowledge. So I'm confident we can all move forward together without hit the ground running. On that note, I'd like to introduce our team. I'm joined by my RHI colleague, Eden Merrick, who I know you've met previously, as well as a couple of members from our larger consultant team. Summer Pan from RKG, who's been working on the market analysis and the housing and demographics analysis, and also Renato Coletti from RK&K, who's been focused on transportation and infrastructure. And let's see, Eden wants to share our slides, there we go. Eden, if you want to go to the next slide, we can talk about the agenda for this evening. Tonight, we'd like to share some updates and highlights from what we've been working on since we last met. And this includes a brief update on where we are in our scope of work, some highlights from the team's existing conditions summary, and some preliminary findings from the recent round of public engagement, which closed at the end of May. And then we'll go over some next steps and what we'll be working on in the coming months. I will note that we have a lot to cover, and we're going to go through some things quite quickly so that we can reserve some time at the end for discussion. So if we could hold any questions or comments until the end, this will help us make sure that there's some time for us to all talk once we finish the presentation. Eden, go to the next slide. One more. And this is the approach, the four-phase project approach that you've all seen before. If you go to the next slide, this shows you where we are in this process. As you can see, we've completed phase 1 and parts of phases 2 and 3. Next slide. And here we're highlighting what we're working on right now. And that includes today's steering committee meeting, which completes our work for task 2. And we're also currently refining a draft of the existing conditions summary and synthesizing those findings with what we have learned from the public engagement process. And through this, we'll be developing a set of issues and opportunities that will provide the guiding framework for developing strategies and actions during phase 4, which will continue over the summer. Next slide, please. As noted, we're currently refining a draft existing condition summary and plan to share this with you following our update to Town Council next week. And in the meantime, we wanted to share some highlights from that review of existing conditions. And this reflects information gathered through a variety of sources and activities. We've been conducting site visits. We've held a series of stakeholder meetings. RKG, as I mentioned, has been preparing a market assessment and analysis of demographics in housing. And we've also reviewed the existing comprehensive plan and have been conducting a review of transportation, infrastructure, and environmental conditions led by RK&K. These are the 9 elements or topic chapters that form the structure of both our review of existing conditions, but also the strategies and actions that will be in the comprehensive plan. And these include, in the order we'll address it today, economic growth, neighborhoods and housing, economic growth, land use and livability, public health and safety, historic resources, arts and culture, parks and recreation, and natural resources and the environment, and finally, transportation and infrastructure. We'll now run through some of the highlights from these reviews, and we'll start that with the neighborhoods and housing piece, which also includes some demographic findings. So I'm going to turn it over to Summer now, who will go through that, followed by the summary of the market assessment and economic growth, and then we'll turn to some of the other topics. Summer?
Yep. Thank you, Eric. Hi, everyone. My name is Summer. I'm the project manager from RKG. Very nice to meet you all today, and an honor to present our findings to you all. Let's look at some trends that we have observed so far for neighborhood and housing characteristics for Dumfries. In general, Dumfries is a growing community with population growing considerably fast between 2012 and 2022, and this is according to US Census American Community Survey data. Population growth mostly driven by young people under 25 and also senior age 65 and older. On the other side, we have also seen a decrease in people in the middle, mostly people in prime working age and also young families. The implication for Dumfries' future is that if the town may want to further look into this, because if the town want to encourage economic growth and attract new businesses might have a harder time looking for workers in the future if there is a decreasing, or if this decreasing trend of workforce continue in the future. Household growth has also increased, mostly driven by owner-occupied and family households. On the other hand, even though Dumfries has proportionally more renters than the county and than in the county, renter households actually have been decreasing. Most likely is because of the lack of rental housing options in Dumfries. Also, the town has proportionally lower percentage of people with bachelor degrees that are higher compared to the county and Virginia, and correspondingly lower median household income, because household income and educational attainment levels usually are positively correlated. And this is mostly because of a lack of higher paying jobs in the town, which will be talked about later on. Next, please. In terms of housing characteristics, Dumfries housing market is mostly composed of single family homes, mobile homes, mostly lower density housing. Very limited new rental units have been built since 2000. Very low vacancy rate. These two factors coupled together, meaning that there's a very tight housing market. Even though the ownership housing market is relatively affordable right now, median home value is around 277K in 2022, according to the census data. When we did the property assessment value analysis using the assessment data, that median home value is around 300K, so around that range. Even though for sale home is sort of affordable right now, home value growth has actually been faster than in the county and Virginia. So probably in the future, if this trend continues, for sale home affordability might be an issue. On the other hand, renters are more challenged. There's a higher share of renter households in Dumfries. Actually, nearly 60% of the renters in Dumfries are cost burden compared to the county and the state. Medium rent and also been increasing as well. Next, please. Now let's look at the broader residential market and the for sale home market. Housing development trend, in general, the pace has been slowing down since 2000, but has surged since COVID. Development interest is shifting from single family homes, lower density housing to higher density homes such as townhome apartments. Home sales also trending down after surge during COVID. However, average sales price for all house types has increased since COVID. And also proportionally more townhome and condo have been sold, meaning like there has been buyer interest, increasing buyer interest in higher density homes as well. Next, please. Now let's look at the multifamily rental market. Again, very limited new rental units have been built since 2000. In fact, Town Square at Dumfries apartment is the only one built since 2000. Very low rental vacancy rate, very tight rental market, coupled with rising rents in Dumfries, which further resonates with the previous finding that renters in the town are more challenged in terms of rent and cost burden. There are at least 470 new housing units in the development pipeline, which is a positive trend, but again, more should be done to add new housing units. 470 units is not enough to address the issue. Next, please. Now let's look at economic growth. The assets and potential for future economic growth for Dumfries is considerable. Because Dumfries enjoys location advantage, very close to highways, Interstate 95, very close to the Quantico Base and Marine Base, within the greater Washington, D.C. area too. Therefore, Dumfries has potential for defense, high-tech related companies, commercial business development. Also, Dumfries is home to many highly skilled workers who are currently living in the town, but may commute to the DC area or to the Quantico base for work. That points to a potential for the town to attract these people to work locally. Growing and diversifying population and also interest for higher density housing are also positive trends, meaning that growing population usually means growing workforce and more demand for housing. Interest from both developers and buyers, renters for higher density housing likely could support this more housing development. In addition to downtown development efforts done by the town, the Rose Gaming Resort and also potential waterfront redevelopment can also be catalyst for change for Dumfries to create real destinations. The Rose Gaming Resort will likely add over 400 new jobs, and a lot of them will be catering to local residents. Potential spin-off effect to attract other related commercial developments to the town. In addition, mixed use and recreational opportunities exist as part of the potential waterfront redevelopment. Next, please. However, in terms of looking at existing conditions, some of the challenges include that there's a lack of growth in high-paying jobs, even though jobs has grew between 2013 to 2023 and is projected to continue its growth by 2033. A lot of the job growth or the top growing jobs, a lot of them pay less than 80,000 per year, which is anecdotally considered a considerable pay. As a result, very little or only 3% of Dumfries labor force actually live and work within the town. That's according to the Census 2021 data. While with the Rose Gaming Resort opening up later this year, this might change because a lot more local residents will work within the town. So this percentage might increase a little bit, but still 2.9% of the labor force live and work within the town is very low. That points to the significance and also importance for the town to focus on recapturing these workers. If the town could attract new business or employers into town and then recapture some of these workforce, a lot of them highly skilled workforce that currently outcommute to either DC area or Prince William County to work in higher paying jobs such as finance, info, real estate, scientific, technical services. The town could, capture a lot of the flow of the labor force and also tax base. Next, please. One of the areas the town should consider to address is the mismatch between jobs and educational levels. Most of the jobs in the Dumfries areas either require no college education or a bachelor's degree. So in reality, only 4% of the jobs require or is appropriate for someone with associate degree or some college education, while in reality in the town, 30% of the people has some kind of college degree, but not quite a bachelor's degree. So this 30% of the labor force has to step down and take jobs that only require a high school degree or below, meaning they usually have to take lower paying jobs, mostly in service or retail sectors. That points to an opportunity for a town to create more jobs in these kind of occupation categories, such as legal support, health tech, computer occupation, etc., that require associate degree or some college education that usually offer higher paying jobs than a high school degree job. Next, please. In terms of existing commercial development and redevelopment potential, existing retail mostly scattered along major highways. They're mostly older and in poor conditions. In terms of existing use, these retail are mostly car-related services or service establishments such as barbershops, laundromats, as well as general retail stores. RKG has done an analysis to identify redevelopment potential areas. The three areas that we can see on the map in the south, the outlined by these bubbles here. Approximate around 35 acres are most suitable for residential development because they're situated within existing residential neighborhoods. The areas that's around the Dumfries Plaza Shopping Center and to the north of them, around 49 acres, have potential for mixed-use redevelopment. And to that, that's the end of our section. I will hand it over to Eric.
Thanks, Summer. Going through a few more of the topic chapters, land use and livability will be where we'll be focusing a lot of our attention in terms of land use patterns that exist now. Residential areas outside the Main Street core comprise approximately 40% of the town. Resource and protection areas, including Quantico Creek, comprise 19%, and the other land use categories comprise smaller proportions of the town. And many of the commercial uses are concentrated in a smaller area along Main Street and Fraley Boulevard. Next slide, please. In the comprehensive plan, we'll be developing strategies and actions for land use and livability, and we'll be focusing on several key opportunities for change that we've identified so far. One is the redevelopment potential of existing commercial sites, the potential redevelopment and recreation opportunities along the Quantico Creek waterfront, opportunities for new housing, and all of these opportunities will also help address some issues that we've heard about so far, such as limited connectivity between land use and destinations and limited retail and dining options within the town. Next slide. In terms of public health and safety, a few takeaways. We know that the police services are provided by the town, and fire and rescue services are provided by both the county and the volunteer fire department. We understand that crime rates increased through 2022, which is the latest available data. And this reflects Virginia trends, but also runs counter to national trends. And finally, we've been hearing that the police facilities and also fire and rescue facilities are currently strained and not meeting current needs, and also that connectivity issues in the street network have been impeding responsibilities. Next slide. Next is community and education facilities. Just briefly, library facilities are provided by the county, and we've heard some concerns that the mini library is not meeting all needs. In particular, the lack of space is limiting this facility's ability to serve as a gathering place and center for community, and also limits the size of the collection. We've also understand that the new community center is in planning stages now with funding from the Rose development, and that there are some school capacity concerns, particularly at the elementary and middle school levels. Next slide. The town's history and historic resources are something that we'll be looking as to celebrate and preserve as part of the comprehensive plan, as well as aiming to identify any additional historic resources that are not currently listed, and also any historic narratives that we could bring to the forefront, such as the town's history of the Deepwater Port. And then in terms of events, there are a wide range of events currently held in the town, but the Rose development will soon expand options by incorporating entertainment venue space. Next slide. For a small town, Dumfries has a strong portfolio of parks and recreation opportunities, and there's more coming soon with the future park at the former landfill site associated with the Rose development. So much of our focus will be on enhancing what is already there and also improving access to these amenities. Next slide. And last but not least, natural resources in the environment. Dumfries has a wealth of natural assets, most notably Quantico Creek. And we've learned, particularly through our recent environmental stakeholder meeting, that there's quite a bit happening with regard to environmental issues, from the brownfields funding to Quantico Creek restoration to the geosynthetic cap being installed at the Potomac landfill. We've also, as part of our review of existing conditions, identified that there's some steep topography in the town, which can be a challenge, but also an opportunity when it comes to land use and urban design. And then we've also, as a segue to our next section, learned that there have been some frequent flooding issues, and we'll be paying close attention to that. And I'm going to turn it over to Renato from RK&K now, who will talk a little bit more about the flooding as it relates to stormwater infrastructure. And then he'll share some the highlights from the review of transportation.
Thank you, Eric.
Renato.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Renato Coletti with RK&K. I'm the lead transportation engineer for this project. I have over 9 years of experience in traffic and transportation. So yeah, and let's just jump right in. As you can see on the map in your screens, that is the stormwater drainage map for the town of Dumfries, which is currently classified as a FEMA Zone AE, which is considered a high-risk flood zone with a 1% annual chance of flooding and a 26% chance over the life of a conventional 30-year mortgage of flooding. In the town, selected neighborhoods, mostly the newer neighborhoods and newer developments, feature curb and gutter drainage, which would be the modern type of drainage. Otherwise, older zones would feature only roadside ditches and graded drainage. Previously, it has been reported by town citizens that a 100-year flood, which is supposed to be a flood that happens once every 100 years, has occurred 4 times in the past 10 years within the town. Next slide, please. Now, getting a little bit more into the transportation aspect, Dumfries is comprised of 2 main principal arterial highways, which are Main Street and on the west, and Route 1 Fraley Boulevard on the east. In addition, the local road system also includes urban streets, which would be your regular neighborhood street, I-95 to the west, the interstate, sidewalks, bicycle facilities, public transportation, and parking. Next slide, please. So here in the table below, you can see some statistics about the main corridors, which I already mentioned are Main Street and Route 1 within the town. The United States Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration classified roadways by their function based on the type of service that they provide to motorists. And this designation is also used to collect data more efficiently and for improvement planning purposes. Basically, Main Street and Route 1 are both classified as other principal arterials within the town. Both of them have speed limits of 35 miles per hour. Main Street carries around 13,000 vehicles a day on average, while Route 1 carries 11,000 vehicles in the segment that it's only one way northbound, and in segment 2, which is between Possum Point Road and the northern boundary of the town, it carries about 27,000 vehicles per day. It makes sense because it's a 2-way, 4-lane undivided roadway, which is expected to carry more vehicles than just one way. Next slide, please. Here we have an overview of the crash history of Route 1 from the last 9 years, 2015 to 2023. Please keep in mind that the database for crashes for 2023 only runs until October, so there might be a little bit, the month of October, so there might be a little bit more crashes for November and December that are still not in the database. As you can see there were a total of 262 reported crashes, from which 95 involved or ended up being injuries. This could be injuries that were barely visible to very severe injuries. There were also a total of 2 fatalities reported in the last 9 years within this roadway, and 13 crashes were reported as alcohol related. Lastly, 4 crashes involved pedestrians, and from those 4, one of them resulted in a fatality, and 2 of them resulted in severe injuries. Next slide, please. This is the same overview, but for Main Street. Excuse the typo, it says 262 total reported, but it's actually just 84 crashes, from which 40 of them were injury crashes. So that is something it's like really eye-opening that almost 50% of the crashes were involved injuries. However, there were no fatalities reported for Main Street, which is definitely something positive. And only 5 crashes were alcohol related. There were no crashes involving pedestrians reported, and only 1 involving a bicycle. Next slide, please. Here we have a really quick overview of the VTrans midterm needs for both roadways, Route 1 and Main Street. So what is VTrans? It's just the Virginia Transportation Plan. And what are midterm needs? What they seek is to identify goals and objectives for roadways within Virginia in the next 10 years. And the goal is to prioritize roadways based on the magnitude of the midterm needs and if there are several overlapping needs. As you can see on your screen, both roadways, Main Street and Route 1, are divided in multiple segments, and each segment is assigned a specific priority based on the amount of overlapping needs. Orange being the priority 2, which is highest priority for that roadway, and green being priority 4, which is lowest priority. The acronym RN underneath the VTrans midterm needs stands for regional networks, which are roadways which objective is to support travel within the region itself, and also to bridge the gap between the current and the desired future economic conditions of the state of Virginia. We also have segments that have pedestrian safety improvement needs. I already spoke a little bit about crashes. Those segments are most likely the ones where pedestrian and bicycle crashes happened and where there were pedestrian fatalities. Lastly, we have safety improvements for segments and intersections, which is basically identifying segments and intersections with higher number of crashes than expected based on the characteristics of the roadway. That can be the amount of lanes of the roadway, the amount of vehicles that the roadway carries every day, if there's lighting in the intersection or along the roadway, how many pedestrians cross intersections, and how many bicycles use bicycle lanes. Next slide, please. Here we have an overview of recently completed projects and ongoing studies within the town. We can start with the Main Street Small Area Plan, which is the green line right on Main Street. Then we also have the Route 1 Fraley Boulevard widening project, which is expected to start construction in 2027. The current roadway is expected to be widened to a 2-way, 6-lane roadway, if I'm not mistaken. Also, in the southeast, you'll see the future location of the Dumfries Civic Center. We also have to the northwest Big Blue area, which is the future location of the CDG mixed-use development, which will include the Rose Casino. Then to the north, we have the Quadrant Roadway at the intersection of Route 1 and Route 234, which is still planning stages. And not shown in this map, you'll see the Potomac Shores Virginia Railway Express station, which is expected to impact the town once it's completed and running. Next slide, please. Finally, we have the transit network within the town. Currently, there's only one designated bus route that serves the town, which is called Dumfries Local, and it's operated by OmniRide. It has currently 11 designated bus stops within the town, and it offers a service between 5:20 a.m. and 10:35 p.m. during a regular weekday, and on the weekends from 6:50 a.m. to 10:35 p.m. In addition, the bus may travel from the basic route up to 3/4 of a mile to pick up or drop off passengers, but this service needs to be scheduled in advance. It cannot be done on the fly, or I believe it's at least 24 hours in advance to be able to request that service. With this, I think this gets back to Eric. Thank you very much.
And I'm actually going to pass the baton to Eden, who will go through some of our findings from the public engagement process.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to zip through these very quickly so that we have time for discussion and questions. So we've completed a range of outreach activities thus far, ranging from stakeholder group interviews. We met with town council and all of you at the beginning of the project as well, to online survey, which closed recently, as well as pop-ups and an open house. In addition to speaking with town council in smaller groups, we conducted 8 stakeholder interviews, and we incorporated some of what we heard from those meetings into the existing conditions summary. So you heard a little bit of that earlier in the presentation. And then overviews of these interviews will be included in the engagement summary that is forthcoming. So through these 3 different approaches, the online survey, the open house, and the pop-ups, which kind of made up the bulk of this recent phase of engagement, people were asked to respond to the same set of questions, just in different formats. And in total, we had more than 100 people participate. And the goal was to identify strengths and challenges, residents' current perceptions of the town, and people's visions, goals, and priorities. So this is, again, is just a snapshot of what we heard. You'll be able to view more details later on. So an overview of the questions we asked, what are the top 2 best things about Dumfries today? And responses spread fairly evenly over 4 categories: transportation and infrastructure, parks, recreation, and youth development, neighborhoods and housing, and public safety and community services. And also of note is that many of the people who selected other left comments about how great the people are and what a wonderful community is and welcoming neighbors. So I wanted to point that out. We also asked, what are the top 2 challenges that Dumfries needs to address? And again, answers were spread out among many of the categories, 3 of which were the same as the top 2 best things about Dumfries. But here we see 2 more that people are concerned about. So arts, culture, and historic resources, and a healthy economy. We also asked, where do people like to spend their time? And so these are some of the answers that we heard repeated, and especially parks. When asked to share one word that describes Dumfries today, responses were generally positive. So you see the largest words in this word cloud are the ones that we heard over and over again, and they are all generally positive references. We also asked people to describe, what they hope Dumfries to be like in about 20 years. And so these were, again, some answers that we heard repeatedly. And we heard things like thriving downtown, more things to do, while also maintaining a small town feel. We're also really interested in prioritizing the actions and strategies for the town. So we asked participants to rank the goals of the Dumfries 2023 strategic plan from most critical to least, and affordability and livability came out on top. And finally, these are just some other ideas that we heard throughout the process. Public art, bringing in more local businesses, being a need for more emergency planning. So again, this is just a snapshot of what we heard, and a more detailed summary is one of our next steps moving forward.
And just briefly, before we turn to discussion, I wanted to highlight a few next steps. You can go to the next slide. As noted, we'll be finalizing the existing condition summary and the public engagement findings. We're working on that now, and then we'll be merging these findings to identify priority issues and opportunities to be addressed in the comprehensive plan. And then these issues and opportunities will serve as the basis for beginning to develop strategies and actions for the comprehensive plan and preparing the rest of the draft comprehensive plan document. We'll be working on this over the summer, and the hope is we can come back to the public for a second round of public engagement, likely sometime the end of the summer into the fall. And at that point, we'll be sharing some of the direction of the draft comprehensive plan for feedback. And finally, we'll now turn it back to you. We'd love to hear your thoughts, reactions, suggestions. To frame this discussion, we wanted to pose two questions to you. One is, are we missing anything that we should be focusing on more as we move forward into issues, opportunities, and then the strategies and actions? And then the second question is, are we, what are your thoughts on what are the priorities for the strategies and actions that should be developed in the comprehensive plan related to the 9 chapter topic areas? But with that, I'll turn it back to you all, and we'll welcome whatever discussion we can generate during the time remaining.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to open it up for comments. Thank you. Site visits and talking to the residents.
Sorry to interject, but I think the sound, at least on our end, is breaking up a little bit. So I don't know if you need to be closer to a mic or.
Can you hear me now? Is it good?
It's better, yeah. I was just missing every other word for. Sure. Thank you.
I want to say thank you for your effort actually going out, reaching out to the town members. I think that's where we see a lot of most of our value in that, just actually going out and speaking with folks. But I'm going to turn it over to open it up for commissioner comments now. I'll start with Commissioner Borka. Anything for the group?
Sure. To answer question 2, from my perspective, land use and livability would be the number 1. We've gone through a bunch of planning and approval of projects. For instance, the land use right behind us, the same owners are going to build a Wawa, which we've seen really rapid progress on, but the same owners haven't done anything on the property behind us, which affect the amount of people that can move into the area in apartments. And so the use of that also falls into neighborhoods and housing and economic growth. So those would be 3 priorities for me from my perspective. And some of those plans are already approved. We just don't see any action on them.
All right. Commissioner Young?
Yes, sir. Thank you. First of all, again, as the chair said, appreciate your presentation. Under your slideshow for existing conditions under neighborhood and housing, I noticed that under demographic trends, your 2023 data is missing, and just want to know exactly what is taking place with that.
I see you have on a growing community with population gaining by 13.9% between 2012 and 2022. Is there any further data for 2023?
So this data is gathered from or obtained from American Community Survey, which is part of the U.S. Census Service. The latest data available right now is as of 2022. So the 2023 data is not available yet. But once the census updates it, it will become in the future. But right now, 2022 is the latest.
Is that the same as also for the economic growth for the growing diversity of population increases by 13.9 between 2012 and 2022? Is that the same?
Yes, yes. The majority of the data come from U.S. Census. Anywhere you see 2022, those are the latest data available.
Okay. The other question which I had, still only for economic growth, you said that the roads will add 400 plus new jobs. Can you tell me what the average salary would be for?
We don't have data yet for the average salary, but with the town's help, we may be able to pull some of the data that should be available, but we were not able to find data during our analysis yet.
Okay, because when I looked at the existing conditions for economic growth and the 2023 top 10 major employment industries, if you take all of those and combine them all together with an average salary of only $67,700, if that's within the town. If the Rose itself has in a combined average salary that is less than that, how does that equate to economic growth for the town?
Right. So economic growth, well, not necessarily ideally high paying jobs will be ideal, but people need jobs. So any level of jobs, if it's available for local residents, that will be a plus. But of course, as part of our findings, suggest that the town should also focus on attracting more higher paying jobs. But with the Rose, it will also have additional spin-off effects. It may attract other additional commercial or services or other types of business. If the Rose can become like a destination, that's what we talked about in the economic growth chapter. If the town could utilize the Rose development and other redevelopment opportunities to create spin-off effect, that could create something that is more significant or a better economic growth effects than the Rose alone.
Okay. And my last, I'm sorry. My last question that dealt with public health and safety and the transportation infrastructure. Again, the 23 under public health and safety, the 2023 data was not there for the violent crimes. Because you have it from 2020 to 2022. And then another one just said 93 were reported in Dumfries for 2022, but no data for 2023.
That's correct. Unfortunately, the latest data that's available right now is 2022. But if the town has its own statistics, we'd welcome that so we can reflect some of the more current information.
Okay, and the last is on the transportation infrastructure. I apologize for taking up so much of your time. Under the traffic volume for AADT, you have it up until 2021. Is there any data for 2022 and 2023 for the volume?
Unfortunately, not at the moment. The data that we're presenting you comes from the Virginia Department of Transportation website, which has not been updated for both those corridors since 2021. Same as my colleagues here. Next, if the data is updated for 2022, while we're working on this project, it will definitely be updated, and that will be the data that will be shown once we submit the existing conditions document.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Nias, any comments, questions for the group?
Thank you for the presentation. It's very nice and clear. Each of you guys have your portion explained very well. So I think my priority for issues, the first one will be economy growth. The second one will be the transportation and the infrastructure. The third one will be the neighborhoods and the housing. And the number third as well, the public health and safety. That would be the top three I think. So these are try to answer your questions for now. And thank you guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Nias. Commissioner Beisel, anything?
Yes, again, thank you for all of the work that you've put into the presentation here. Looking at the neighborhoods and housing, I know that a lot of the data showed that our townhouse communities are some of the most in demand right now. Looking at Williamstown and South Cove, I think there's maybe 800 neighborhoods in there. Definitely a little bit curious as to what the plans for Williamstown Drive. It looks like there's going to be a discussion there. And so a lot of what I think is most important in the town is accessibility to parts of the town for pedestrians. And so there's, with all those neighborhoods, I think possibly a need even for a pedestrian bridge to go over Route 1. So bridges for pedestrians could be considered. And then I do know that in the downtown town hall center, it has been talked about before as it to being a community gathering place, a place where, you know, we could have a place, whether they're Friday night events or anything like that. We are currently doing the the farmers market in this location. So having a pedestrian bridge right into the park right on the other side there from Williamstown Drive, I think would work very nicely. You know, just again, in the past, this particular spot has been talked about as a place where a future gathering place. And that all comes down to, I think, the importance of also beautifying the town when it comes to, you know, making sure things are done with nice landscaping, foliage, planting, and you know, just a nice paint job on things. So thank you.
Commissioner Russell, any comments or questions for the group?
Again, I'd like to echo the comments from the other commissioners. Thank you very much for putting this together. It's very thorough. And you've touched on a lot of subjects. A couple comments, and I don't expect an answer right here and today, but it's some things to consider. Looking at existing conditions and talking about the housing characteristics, one of the things that I'm curious about as far as how was it determined whether for the percentages of whether it's a rental unit or a homeowner occupied, or if that wasn't even looked at, were only multifamily houses considered for rentals versus single family homes that are being rented out by the owner, and the owner may not even be living in the area. Another question to go with that was the percentage of new proposed homes. Were they part of a rezoning to increase the higher density, or were they built with existing zoning? Going on under existing conditions and economic growth, there was talk about as far as mixed use and recreational opportunities, as far as potential waterfront redevelopment. Has the town provided the consultants any type of what previous studies have been done for the town? I know that they're going in before my time being here in the town, and I've been here since 2000. There has been talk and look groups looking at what could be done for developing the existing Quantico Creek in that area. But I believe there were some issues, and again, I think the town needs to make that available to you if they still have a record of that. And I realize this is existing condition, but does the study going to take a look at what are the residential density goals in this town for looking at what's proposed and what's existing, but also what are any goals for the FAR commercial development in the town? Also under existing conditions, when you were presenting, you showed on the slide presentation an existing condition map, but it was missing. And I believe it was showing the areas of potential growth or development. Also, in the existing conditions under land use patterns, it references historic resources, but doesn't provide a percentage to that. And I realize there's not very many in the town, but in dealing with historic resources, is that only considering actual built structures, or is it also considering historic areas within the town? And was there any outreach to Prince William County Historic Society? Historical department. The county has a historical department. Let's see. Overall, it's done very, very well. And the one thing I saw also was not included was Route 234 was not broken out. When you're talking about the existing conditions in the transportation, you had Main Street, Route 1, that's Fraley Boulevard, that's one segment versus the one that's two segments, but there was no mention of 234. And also going on, again, there was no, Route 1 was not broken out when you were talking about the V-Trans as far as the needs. And then also for existing conditions, again, you're talking about the Route 1 improvements, the widening projects for 2027. But did you look at what the approved plans are for that and how that may or may not affect the town and affect the development? And also, and I do not know this, but is the plans approved, and is there any possibility for any input into that project of the Route 1 widening and how it's going to affect the town and our development patterns? Also, when talking about the transit network, I know that you briefly talked about the PRTC, but has there been any outreach to them as far as what their overall master plan is and any additional studies that they have done in, say, the past 15, 20 years up to the present as far as their bus stops in the town? I know that's been an issue in the past with the town and the PRTC. The PRTC is not going to provide a bus stop unless there's adequate number of people using that. Again, that's been another issue in the town. As far as the public engagement, I think it's great. I know how difficult it is to get people to come out to meetings unless it's something that directly affects them or is going to be built next to them. My question is not to the consultants, but would be to the town. And I do not know how much the town actually provided outreach to people, whether it was a mailing flyer or robocalls or what, but I would like to see that the town tries more to reach out to the citizens so they know that this is going on and that they can provide input. I think the input that we got is very good. I think it helps out tremendously. And as far as what I would say is most important, unfortunately, transportation, I believe, drives a lot. To me, it becomes the framework. It's the backbone of what the town is going to be, whether it's people driving through, driving to their home, or people trying to walk or bike to the different facilities. That is one thing I think is extremely important. And one reason why I mentioned 234 is connectivity to existing facilities and future facilities. Working with the county in their master plan and making sure that we are reaching out to them to make sure that our goals and objectives will at least be on their radar and try to match somewhat to what their goals and objectives are for the Route 1 corridor and 234. And as far as second, my concern would be community and educational facilities in the town. And that's very broad. To me, a community facility can be a building, can be a park, but I think that's very important to this town and to the people, especially the people that you spoke to, having the resources, the places to go, and the programs to do that. So I appreciate your time. I know I went on, but that's everything I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Russell. Only question I have really for the consultants, if we can go back to slide number 11, it talks about existing conditions with neighborhood and housing. There were two information bubbles there. One was the 78% for family household, and there's 22% for non-family household. Help me out a little bit there. What is non-family, and what does that mean as it relates to the 22%?
Right. Non-family, well, this is all, by the way, the data from American Community Survey, which is come from US Census Bureau. Non-family household is defined as, say, for example, people living together as roommates, but they're not related. Just normal young professionals living with roommates, or students living with roommates. Anything not, they're not related, considered non-family household.
Okay, all right. That's what I suspected, but I just needed you to confirm that. Thank you.
Right, yep.
Okay. All right. That's all I had. I'm going to turn it back over to town staff if you have anything you want to add to what the consultants gave to us for this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, commissioners, for your comments. This is your plan. This is the town's plan, and your involvement, your engagement, your thoughts, your comments are essential to the update process. And I guess, yeah, the consultants are still there. Did you want to provide a little more information on the next step?
Sure. As I mentioned, our next step is right now we're in the process of refining the existing conditions summary, drilling down into a little more detail into the public engagement findings, and then we'll be diving into preparing the strategies and actions, and that will start with identifying a set of issues and opportunities that will be our guiding framework for developing the strategies and actions, and then starting to write portions of the plan. We will we'll be doing this over the summer, and our goal is to have some draft strategies to share with the public. We'll need to discuss with Reggie the exact timing for this, but by the end of the summer into the fall, whenever we can, it's best to schedule the second round of public engagement, and that's when we'll do another community workshop and other activities to get input from town residents and stakeholders. So those are our immediate next steps. Happy to go into more detail.
And we anticipate the third steering committee meeting following the identification of plan elements and draft land use framework, according to the document.
Yes, that's when we would be coming back to you all for a third committee meeting.
And we anticipate that being around September, October, being late summer, early fall.
That's likeliest. Yeah, we'll be doing a lot of our work over the summer, and the goal is to have some draft strategies that we can share in the fall, and then bring to the public.
Thank you. That's it. I'm going to close the public hearing at 8:07. And I'm going to go around the table for the other commissioners for any open remarks, starting with Commissioner Borka. Anything? No comment. Commissioner Russell, anything? Commissioner Young, anything? No comment. All right, we're good. Commissioner Diaz, you comment? Commissioner Beisel? No comment. All right. I have two items, housekeeping. One is for staff. I have a meeting scheduled. I want to schedule a meeting with the town attorney to do a follow-up with the bylaws governing planning commission. So I want to have that scheduled by the end of the month. I'll get with the town attorney and see if we get some time on their calendar for that. And last thing is for the commissioners, July is going to be my last meeting as the chair. So according to the bylaws, according to the bylaws, I can only serve 2 consecutive one-year terms. So August we'll have to have someone as the chair for new. So come July, I'll open it up for nominations and voting. Of course, I'll abstain from voting and nominate. You guys want to get together and decide the drive from here on out then on July's meeting. So, and I'll get with the town attorney to see how we put that on the agenda as well. If there is nothing else, anyone want to make a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second? Second. All right. Vote for adjournment. Commissioner Nias? Commissioner Beisel? Approved. Commissioner Borka? Approved. Commissioner Young? Approved. Commissioner Russell? Approved. I approve. The meeting is adjourned at 8:10 p.m.